back, 6th grade virtual learners, and this is another lesson of Too Good for Drugs. Now, in our last lesson, we talked about the harmful effects of tobacco and nicotine use. Today, we're going to talk about a drug that affects vision, memory, reason, concentration, and other abilities as well. And can you guess what this drug is? This drug is marijuana. Now, marijuana comes from a plant called Cannabis sativa, and it contains over 400 chemicals. Now, one of these chemicals is responsible for most of the effects we'll talk about today. This chemical is called tetrahydrocannabinol, also short for THC. Now, THC is the mind-altering substance and harmful to the developing brain and body. Now, THC interferes with concentration, memory, thinking, and perception. Now, the legal status of marijuana is the subject of ongoing debate, and it's a federal offense as of now to purchase, grow, carry, or use marijuana because of the harm it can cause. Now, in some states, marijuana use and limit possession permitted under the guidance of licensed medical professionals and when dispensed from an approved and regulated dispensary. Now, today we'll discuss recreational use of marijuana, not medical marijuana. And recreational use is just for the purpose of getting high. Now, while possession of marijuana are federal offenses, some states do allow recreational use of marijuana, but just like alcohol, it's not legal for people under the age of 21 to use. Now, the national debate about marijuana can make it difficult to separate the myths and the facts about this drug. So we're going to do a little activity on page 16 called Matter of Fact. All right? Now, we're going to look at each question and we're going to see if it's a fact or a myth about each of these statements about marijuana. So let's start with number one. Now, number one says marijuana is safe because it's all natural. Do you think that's a fact or a myth? That is actually a myth because there are a lot of things that are safe and natural, such as heroin comes from a poppy plant, which is a natural plant, and cocaine comes from a coca plant, which is a natural plant. But those are not safe drugs, and they can be very deadly to your body. So number one is myth. Now, number two, marijuana is addictive. That is a fact. Now, marijuana is a psychoactive drug, and psychoactive means having to do with the brain. And marijuana has a lot of chemicals that can affect how your brain works and how your body works. Number three, spice or synthetic marijuana is a safe alternative to real marijuana. The answer to that is myth. A lot of synthetic marijuana can have some more of deadly chemicals than actually natural marijuana. Four, marijuana use slows the heart rate, which relaxes the body. That is a myth. A lot of people think that marijuana kind of relaxes you and it kind of, cools you down. But in sense marijuana is a psychoactive drug. So your brain's believing that your body is slowed down, but actually your heart is beating faster than its normal rate. Five, marijuana smoke weakens the immune system. That is myth. That is a myth. That's a fact. Marijuana does weaken your immune system. That's a fact. There's a study shown that more people who smoke marijuana are more prone to get sick than people who don't smoke marijuana. Six, marijuana use motivates users to achieve more in life. That is a myth. There is a thing called a lack of motivational syndrome that people go through when they smoke marijuana. Now, there are some people who use marijuana that can do everyday tasks, but most of the time they are pretty much, just lazy and they kind of just want to sit down. Seven, marijuana use disrupts brain development. That is fact, because as we said earlier, marijuana is a psychoactive drug which affects the brain. Eight, marijuana use impairs driving ability. That is a fact. Marijuana can affect areas of the brain that works with balance and coordination and reaction time. And 9, a person can be arrested and charged while driving under the influence when driving the vehicle while high on marijuana. That is a fact. 10, the effects of marijuana use only last for an hour or two. That is a myth, because when you take a drug test for a job, they can trace marijuana in your system all the way back from 3 months ago. 11, the FDA has recognized and approved marijuana plant for the use of medicine. That is a myth. Now, they have put some components in some medicine of marijuana, but they haven't approved marijuana as a whole to be known as a medicine. And number 12, one-day recreational use of marijuana will be legal for everyone regardless of age. That is a myth. If marijuana does go legalized, if it does legalize in all United States, it will be for adults 21 years or older. Now, I want everybody to look on the bottom of page 16 where it says consider consequences. And I want you to check off positive if you think the consequence of marijuana use is a positive use, which is the plus sign, and I want you to check off the minus sign, which is negative use, if you think it's a negative use for the consequence of marijuana. And it also has THC effect, all right? So let's do the first one. Now, suspended from school for repeated tardiness, and THC effect is lack of motivation. That is a negative consequence. Next, kicked off the basketball team for missing practice. THC effect, short-term memory loss. That's also negative. 3, black eye. THC effect, slow reaction time. That's also a negative consequence. 4, letting the team down, being benched. THC effect, poor decision making. It's also a negative. 5, broken windows, scratched cars, and lost job. THC effect, poor depth perception, loss of balance and coordination, and poor judgment. That's also a negative consequence. 6, forget to babysit, grounded, and miss the party. THC effect, short-term memory loss, and poor decision making. That's a negative effect. 7, cut from the school play, cannot remember lines, and THC effect, short-term memory loss. That is a negative effect. 8, loss of friends. THC effect, lack of motivation, poor decision making. That is a negative effect. And 9, argues with parents, no trust, lack of motivation, poor decision making. It's a negative effect. 10, poor hygiene, which THC effect is lack of motivation, and that is also a negative effect. So as you see, with all of those consequences, there were no positive consequences for marijuana use. Now, media portrayals of marijuana use, whether in news or in film, causes people to overestimate marijuana use. In fact, most middle school students are smart and they don't use marijuana. Now, we talked about how decisions to use marijuana can make many negative consequences. Remember to stop and think about how marijuana could be a roadblock on your journey to reaching your goals and becoming a happy, healthy, confident person you want to be. So next week, on Lesson 9, we're going to talk about the safe use of prescription and over-the-counter medicines.